Boss Dewey here on the screen. This is a build I've set up for aircraft carriers with Yerzy Swirsky and Space Fishy as the inspirations. Hello, I am Xarkun and this is World of Warships Legends. Today I've got a game on the North map. It's a capture the base mode game, and I'm featuring the Tier 7 USN aircraft carrier Lexington. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Aircraft carrier gameplay is kinda dry. It's not the most interesting thing to watch, right? And also a lot of people are not fans of aircraft carriers, and I'm one of those people. But that doesn't mean I'm not playing the aircraft carriers. I want to, gain a level of proficiency in this class equal to the level of proficiency I have in other classes. I think it will contribute to making me a better player overall. But I was watching a T-Bowl video the other day, can't remember which one it was, but in that video T-Bowl said he had been advised by members of the community that perhaps the base commanders for each nation would make better aircraft carrier commanders than the dedicated aircraft carrier commanders. So, George Dewey over Ernest King, or Togo Hayachiro over Taemon Yamaguchi, or I guess in the upcoming German line, Reinhard Scheer over Hans Geisler. Of course, that remains to be seen since, as of today, the German line is not yet in the game. In any case, I slapped George Dewey on the Lexington with an aircraft carrier-focused build, and I played a few games with it. And you know what? I think I tend to agree with those members of the community that advocate for the base commanders on the CVs. Dewey has some skills that really buff the efficacy of the torpedoes on the Lexington. The skill in the first row increases the speed by 4 knots. Add Space Fishy onto that build as an inspiration, and suddenly you got these torpedoes ripping through the water at a top speed of 54 knots, I think. And, 54 knots, those are slow torpedoes if they were launched from a destroyer. In fact, they're about as quick as, say, American destroyer torpedoes, but launched from a carrier makes them so much easier to hit. So there's that one aspect to the build. Dewey's also got a skill that buffs the concealment of all ships, and I only have him at rank 11, so it's only a 5% change, but it could be 6% with that skill, that particular skill, fully maxed. And if I were to do that and perhaps build the Lexington for secondaries, I'm pretty sure I could get the secondary range on this ship, further than the sea detectability range, which would mean the secondaries could fire from stealth. Pretty meme-worthy. But speaking of meme-worthy, it turns out that aircraft carriers, like any other class of ships, are perfectly capable of capturing bases. You might have noticed that in the title of this video, and that's probably why you clicked on this video. Yes, indeed, spoiler alert. We are, in fact, going to capture the base, and this is going to be due in part to a syndrome that I feel like I've noticed infecting both the red and blue teams in games where aircraft carriers are present. And that syndrome is, I guess you could call it the black hole syndrome, the black hole spud syndrome. All the ships like to group together. You can see that my team is doing that sort of right outside of our own base there. We've got, 4 ships in the same 2 grid squares there. And the enemy team, they're not quite doing that, but they're not exactly spread out either. Everybody's just sort of concentrated in one area of the map, which makes it a lot easier to, A, position the aircraft carrier, and B, I guess, figure out where the destroyers are. And that's what I'm focusing on in the beginning portion of this game. I'm focusing on harassing the destroyers whenever possible. There's another one. Initially, I was going for that Scharnhorst, but as soon as I see this guy, I change my course and I, start a drop on him. That is the power of the aircraft carriers in this game. It can be difficult to do a lot of damage with them. Now, some people have a natural knack for it. think JC gameplay. I featured a Lexington game of his some time ago where he did over 200,000 damage, and I think on the official World of Warships Legends Discord server, he actually holds the record for most damage done in the Lexington at a whopping 265,000. Now, I've never been able to get anywhere close to that. I think the most damage I've done in an aircraft carrier to date is something like 150,000, and it was in the Lexington or Shokaku. Nevertheless, that high amount of damage can be done. But I think the primary focus of anybody who wants to play aircraft carriers is to A, spot the destroyers, and B, drop them whenever possible. If you can thin out the destroyer herd on the enemy team, it makes it that much easier for your team to win the game. However, at this point, the enemy has all gone to, I guess you would say, the eastern side of the map over there. Aside from this lone Scharnhorst, and this Scharnhorst is sailing on a course where he might eventually intercept me. That's something I don't want to allow. So you can see I've dropped him with one set of torpedoes, and I'm turning back around to drop him with the other. This is actually, I think, the first time I've ever been able to drop a battleship with all 6 torpedoes from the Lexington, and all 6 hit that Scharnhorst, doing a massive amount of damage. Honestly, it's pretty disgusting, and there was really nothing he could do to stop it. He, I guess, was trying to rely on his anti-aircraft gunners to shoot down my planes, but they did not. So, pretty fun and engaging gameplay on this Scharnhorst's part. Since he's all alone, though, it makes it that much easier to actually drop him. There are no other enemy ships in the area whose anti-aircraft bubbles overlap with him, so it's just his AA I have to worry about. And come Monday, when these Tier 7 aircraft carriers get a new consumable called Evasive Maneuvers that temporarily renders them immune to damage, well, it'll be even easier to do that. I'm not a fan of that consumable. We'll see how it works. Hopefully the duration is really short, like maybe 5 seconds or something. In any case, 6 torpedoes on this Scharnhorst, 4 bomb hits, and we're coming around for another bomb drop here, and that's pretty much going to be the end of this guy. There he goes. There's our first kill of the game, and we're up to 52,000 damage, while about roughly half of the game has passed. Now, though, this side of the map is entirely clear, and notice I have a teammate with me. It's a destroyer. I think it's a Yudachi. He's on Xbox. I don't know if he knows who I am or what's going on here, but he's sort of providing an escort to me. He's basically being my little assistant here. I don't know how actually useful this is. His talents and his ship might be better deployed to the other side of the map where all the enemies actually are, but as long as he's with me, if by some strange miracle an enemy destroyer actually comes near me, well, then at least I've got screening in the form of that Yudachi. He could potentially smoke up and block that destroyer's line of sight. The Yudachi's actually telling me to get back. I guess he doesn't like what I'm doing, and I am sort of sailing for the enemy base at this point. I mean, the path to it is completely clear, apart from that Scharnhorst with, I dispatched him with relative ease there, and now this Bismarck, who is sailing in our direction, he's actually getting quite close, so I'm moving behind one of those islands there to block his line of sight on me. The Yudachi's also torpedoing him. I think my torpedoes are going to hit first, but the Yudachi's going to end up taking that Bismarck down. So now the path to the enemy base is entirely clear, and this is due completely to all of the ships grouping up together and not spreading out across the map and trying to control the whole map, instead only controlling one small section of it, really limiting the scope of the battle to a limited geographical area. And I think ships like to do this because they like to group up together and pool their anti-aircraft firepower together, which is a a sentiment or a feeling or a desire, I suppose, that I understand. The anti-aircraft firepower does seem to get a lot more effective when you fly your planes into a location in the sky that is covered by the anti-aircraft bubbles of a number of ships. You tend to lose a lot more planes, I find, in those cases. So I understand why ships want to group up in games where aircraft carriers are present, but that has a massive downside, which is ceding control of the map. And all you really need are one or two ships to break away from that big cluster of both red and blue ships and acquire a position somewhere on the flank or something like that, somewhere where there are no enemy ships present, and then those two ships are going to exert an outsized amount of influence on the game by virtue of their positioning. They can develop crossfires, they can, if they're destroyers, they can maybe launch torpedoes into the broadsides of enemy ships, whatever it is. Basically, even if there are aircraft carriers in the game, I don't think you want to do this. I don't think you all want to rush to one side of the map, cluster your ships up together, and just sling shells and torpedoes at each other foolishly. You want to play the game like normal. Aircraft carriers are powerful. There's no denying it. They can keep destroyers spotted. They can absolutely ruin the games of destroyers. They can keep them in check. They can do massive amounts of damage to battleships and cruisers over time. But the planes can only be in one place at one time, and they can only attack one ship at one time. So that's something you gotta keep in mind. Now, if a carrier drops you, your options are pretty limited. They're down to maneuvering and relying on your anti-aircraft guns to shoot down the planes, and that is frustrating. And like I said, it is made slightly better if you do group up, but you don't want your entire team to group up, because this kind of thing happens. Now, frankly, we're pretty evenly matched in terms of ship count here, and the enemy team still has all of their destroyers, but as you can see, even though I wasn't able to drop that particular destroyer, I did keep him spotted, and that directly led to his demise. That is the ultimate power of the carrier. Even if you can't drop the destroyer, you can keep them spotted, and, well, in that case, you do have to rely on your team to actually shoot at them, and many times when you're trying to do that, your team will disappoint you. But sometimes they won't, and sometimes they will kill the destroyer. Also, sometimes you can kill the destroyer. There goes the other destroyer. And, yeah. So, I apologize for that ding text alert. I thought I had muted that, but I hadn't, and I don't want to stop this commentary because I'm on a roll, but you'll notice that I am now inside of the enemy base. There's only one enemy ship left. It is the enemy aircraft carrier, and here we are, capping in a carrier. And the only reason it was possible? Well, because the enemy all rushed to the western side of the map and left the eastern side free of enemy ships, aside from two lone battleships, a Scharnhorst and a Bismarck, and between myself and the Yudachi that was escorting me, we were easily able to dispatch those two ships and get into the enemy base, resulting in this rather meme-worthy result of Boss Dewey's carrier capping the enemy base. And at this point, we're just farming some damage off of that enemy carrier to put us over the 100,000 damage threshold before this game ends with our victory. And I get an assisted capture ribbon of capturing a base in an aircraft carrier, which I think is a novel result and the reason I wanted to show you this video. So hopefully you found that all entertaining. I know aircraft carrier gameplay isn't everybody's favorite to watch, and it is, in fact, pretty dry and rather boring, but hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.